Welcome. So this will be a short video on research methods for A-level sociology, and what we're going to discuss are types of data. Now, when we look at types of data, what this means is this is how we categorize, organize and identify research methods based on the information they produce. And when we look at each research method, we may break it down in terms of whether they're a primary or a secondary method, a quantitative or a qualitative method, reliable or valid, and are they preferred by positivists or interpretivists. So this is how we organize our data. So let's start looking at what these categories mean. Now, primary data is data that a researcher has collected first hand. So the researcher will take a look at a group, an individual, a topic, and they might use a number of methods like questionnaires, interviews, observations, or experiments. So the researcher studies the group, they come up with an idea or a theory, and more often than not they'll produce a report, a book, a study on this topic. Now this is primary data because the researcher has collected the information firsthand. They've been active in the research process. Secondary research, on the other hand, is slightly different. This is where the researcher will use existing data rather than collect it firsthand. So this might be research methods like documents, pictures, paintings, statistics, or diaries. And what they will do is they will take that book, that study of the researcher, and they will discuss what they have found. Same with statistics, they may look at the information that produced by statistics that have been collected by other agencies, governments, charities. They may look at diaries to get an understanding of historic events, or they may look at paintings to come up with some kind of narrative or descriptive account of what a situation was like in a time period they may not be able to study directly. Another big question when it comes to research methods is what is the difference between quantitative data and qualitative data, and it really comes down to what the information is about. So quantitative data is any piece of research that will produce information or data in a number form. So it's about the quantity. I always remember it's like the quantity, how much there is, and it's about the data, the information that's produced. So the questionnaires might produce statistics. So you can, although a questionnaire is a number of boxes, you tick yes or no. Ultimately, the data can be quantified, put into graphs and tables and charts. With qualitative data, it's about the quality of the content, and often this is data which is word-based, it's written, it provides a lot of insight, depth, understanding of research and the topic being studied, and they're very different to one another. When it comes to research methods, this is also quite binary in the sense that research methods can be quantitative or qualitative. You don't seem to get many research methods which is quantitative and qualitative in its data that's produced. A questionnaire, for example, is going to be quantitative in its data, but you might find open questions where people can write in a response that will give an element of qualitative data, but not enough to say that questionnaires are overall quantitative and qualitative. Reliability and validity is also a big question. Now, these do tend to link to one another. So quantitative methods are more likely to be reliable. Qualitative methods are more likely to be valid. Now, when it comes to reliability, this is something that means you can repeat it. It's repeatability almost. You can do it over and over again. So questionnaires, lab experiments, structured interviews, structured observations, statistics, they can easily be repeated because they're quite formulaic, they're quite structured, and the results are quite easy to compare because, again, a lot of these methods produce quite quantitative data. Valid methods, on the other hand, this is about trying to get a true picture, a true insight, a true reflection of the group being studied. So it isn't about getting numbers and data, it's about getting an insight and understanding. Unstructured interviews, participant observations, diaries, images, very, very subjective in their study of a group. They often highlight and gain Verstehen, which is this level of empathy and understanding. So you understand what someone's life is like. You haven't lived that life. You've not had to live through the same situations, but you gain an understanding of what their life was like. And this is the real difference in validity and reliability. Now, when it comes to research methods, I mentioned before, these would be the methods that tend to be more reliable, like structured interviews, observations, experiments, systematic content analysis and questionnaires. Valid methods are more likely to be unstructured interviews, focus groups, observations, field experiments, diaries, photos, and thematic content analysis. Now, when it comes to reliability, a bit like when I discussed quantitative and qualitative data, it's quite binary. You do not get methods which are reliable and valid. You will get a research method that is reliable or a research method that is valid. There may be elements of the method which produce a bit more validity, but generally research methods, they tend to be one or the other. So just be careful. It's it's an area a lot of students make mistakes in by saying a research method is valid and reliable. It's quantitative and qualitative, and often that's not the case. So it's just being sure you're sort of comfortable with identifying a method based on what it's going to be. And last but not least, just as an overview, we have positivism and interpretivism. Now, positivists and interpretivists are two groups of theorists, two thinkers, and they approach research in different ways. So when it comes to positivism, if we look at their key concepts and ideas, they are scientific. They view sociology as a science. They like to be objective and value free. They focus on laws, cause and effect. It's quite a top-down approach. They like to test a hypothesis. They're all about reliable data, representative data, and numerical data. Interpretivists, on the other hand, are the complete opposite. They reject sociology as a science. They're very subjective. They like and include value-laden or bias in their research. They want to gain Verstehen, discover meanings. Their theory develops from the research, and there's a high level of validity to the data they collect. As I mentioned, positivists are all about number data, quantitative data that's structured, standardized. Interpretivists are all about qualitative data, again, getting that validity, that Verstehen, that insight. So often unstructured or no standardization to their research. The primary methods that each group use vary as well. Positivists tend to favour questionnaires, surveys, structured interviews, experiments in the labs or the comparative method. Interpretivists, they prefer participant observation, unstructured interviews, field experiments. When it comes to non-participant observation, positivists will give you more structured, interpretivists unstructured. The secondary methods vary as well. Positivists are like official stats as a secondary method, whereas interpretivists like documents, personal documents, diaries, letters, photos. Public documents can vary. They can be positivist or interpretivist. It does depend on what the public document is. So, as I say, transcripts and details of people's experiences in an event would be more interpretivist, whereas maybe a more factual, detailed, analytical report might be more positivist. Historical documents are the same, it depends on the type, and with content analysis it depends whether you're being systematic and using a tally or a tick box to count how many times something appears, or you're using thematic analysis to look for a theme that runs within the project. And there we have it. So this is a very, very brief overview of types of data. So quantitative, qualitative, valid, reliable, primary, secondary, positivist and interpretivist. Hopefully this helps provide some clarity to this, but as I say, they are very binary. A research method will be quantitative or qualitative, primary or secondary. These very few methods overlap, and as I say, it's quite one or the other. And there we have it. So hopefully this helped. Feel free to take a screenshot of this summary overview diagram on the end here. The only thing to mention, just it does relate back to theory. So there is a very minor link that positivists tend to be macro, so that would cover functionalism and Marxism, and interpretivists tend to be quite micro, so it's probably more to lean towards interactionists and symbolic interactionism. Okay, thanks for watching.